Welcome to an overview of the fundamentals of continuous tone rendering. With continuous tone rendering, it's important to remember that your goal is to remove all evidence of the movement of the pencil. Here are our two main materials that we use for continuous tone rendering, which is a drawing pencil. This is an ebony pencil by Prismacolor. Or another pencil we often use would be a 2B pencil, where the graphite is kind of an ideal hardness where it will not get dull very quickly, and it will also give us a nice dark tone. There's a range of pencils you could use. These are the ones we're going to use. I also think that it's a good idea sometimes to use a standard HB pencil for glazing some areas of the rendering. It is very important. You can see these pencils are what I refer to as dangerously sharp. They have been sharpened by hand. A normal pencil sharpener will not suffice for really high quality rendering assignment. So sharpening the pencil and doing it with I use either an X-Acto knife or a box cutter razor as a way of kind of whittling the pencil to get it to this kind of high level of sharpness. I like to sharpen a number of pencils before I start, and I'll have them at the ready while I'm making my drawing. It's important for the pencils to be dangerously sharp, because if we imagine paper as having a surface that we could see, what we call the tooth of the paper has kind of a texture to it. And when we're rendering, we're trying to get graphite to sit on these teeth of the paper. But when we want to get a nice dark tone, we have to cover the entire surface area of the paper. All the little teeth and the gaps in between the teeth need to be covered with the graphite. So keeping the pencil really sharp, a really sharp point, is a way that allows the pencil to feed into the teeth of the paper. If we have a dull pencil, then it just kind of rubs graphite on the tip of the teeth, and there's no way for the graphite to get into these interior valleys between the teeth. Sometimes what happens is somebody's drawing, they bear down really hard with a dull pencil to get the graphite to cover the entire surface, and that actually damages the paper, and we don't want to do that. The paper, if the teeth are sitting up like this and we're trying to get the graphite into the valleys between the teeth, what they do is actually smash the teeth over on top of each other, and there's no way for us to work with the paper anymore at that point. It's been damaged. We can't erase, and we can't make any subtle changes, and in fact the paper becomes burnished and shiny, and actually will draw our attention away from the illusion that we're trying to create within our continuous tone rendering. Again, continuous tone involves removing all evidence of the movement of the pencil. So we're trying to create tones that don't have any directional marks, that by doing a buildup of marks over time, we get dark tones. And by having a very sharp pencil, we can feed the tip of that pencil into the teeth of the paper and get very, very dark tones. What I like to do is actually, as I draw, and actually this pencil, believe it or not, is maybe too dull for getting my darkest tones right now. So I'll actually swap it out for a sharper pencil. But what I like to do as I'm trying to get my darkest tones, I vary the direction of my marks and the angle that my pencil's coming from, the angle that my pencil moves over the paper, trying to give it an opportunity to feed into the different teeth of the paper. But I also will actually choke up on the pencil, if you will, and try to feed the little tip of the pencil into the in between the teeth of the paper there to get our darkest tones. Now, if we do that and we don't damage the paper, we can use our kneaded eraser. This is a terrific tool that we have. It's a kneaded eraser, and you can recharge it constantly. And when it's light like that, it's brand new, and we can erase this. As long as we haven't damaged the surface of the paper, we can pull up almost all of that dark tone that we put down previously. Very, very dark tone, but with the teeth of the paper still intact, we're able to really get rid of that if we don't want that value there anymore. So it's important to remember that continuous tone rendering is additive and subtractive. So the kneaded eraser and the pencil are equal members of the team. For the darkest tones, as you saw me working there, I do kind of believe that it's a good idea to kind of try to sneak up on your darkest tones. I keep rotating the pencil in my hand, trying to get it to sharpen itself as I go. But I'm not going to try to get my darkest tones immediately. I will sneak up on my darkest tones. So it's by repeatedly treating areas that I wind up covering that entire surface area of the paper with graphite. So I'm going to vary the angle, vary the direction. I'm not trying to force the darkest tone into existence. Kind of working, varying the angle, making the pencil have a more severe angle, keeping the pencil very sharp to get my darkest dark. So we're sneaking up on those. Continuous tone rendering, obviously we don't want any movement of the pencil. It's very much different than, say, cross hatching, where you do want to keep the marks and let the buildup of those marks over time become value. Well, that's not what we're doing here with continuous tone rendering. We don't want any of those marks. We essentially want a cloud of tone, a continuous tone. That's the name. And so we work very hard to remove any evidence of the movement of the pencil. And if we do it right, we don't damage our paper over time, we're able to make subtle changes and adjustments that we might want to make. We can tap this eraser onto parts to remove some of the graphite. We can form it into different little shapes. We can form it into little points if that's what we need. We want to erase a particular little moment. We could form it into a little point and get that little point to erase. Lots of different options here, but again, remember that the continuous tone rendering is really, it's additive and subtractive. So just to review, continuous tone is just that, continuous tone. We're trying to remove the movement of the pencil. We are keeping the pencil sharp. Dangerously sharp. We are thinking of this as an additive and subtractive process. We're trying to sneak up on our darkest tones. Build up. This technique of continuous tone is a build up. So as you work on your assignment, your continuous tone rendering assignments, it's important to remember these fundamentals, that continuous tone is a very, very rigorous technique. It involves the sharp pencil, the kneaded eraser, and the other fundamental concepts that we covered here.